Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, we're going to continue with this consecrating an image of Shakyamuni Buddha by Shijo Kingo specifically. So this letter was written to Shijo Kingo, and it's about a sculpture that he had made to represent Shakyamuni Buddha as sort of an homage to his practice, to Shakyamuni Buddha, to the teachings, so on and so forth. And as I already explained, this is an ancient practice. This is a pre-Gohonzon or mandala practice of Nichiren's. And so Nichiren is dealing with a transition in Buddhism here and correct practice, because this is an erroneous practice that started thousands of years before him. And so as he transitions people to fully understand that this is a mental awakening, that the only thing to worship, or pick another word besides worship, it's an internal realization. So it's, instead of worship, it's a dedicated mind of determinism, resolve. We always talk about resolve, to awakening this inner clarity, this inner mind of profound understanding of the process of life. That's already there. It's just obfuscated by all these layers of illusions that in samsara we human beings create for ourselves. And they obfuscate the real perception of what this life process is. So I bring all this up again because right in this first sentence, we're going to deal with something that's fundamental to this 3,000 realms of understanding. What is that? What is it when I'm chanting to my mandala that I'm trying to achieve? Right? This comes up all the time in practice. We get it and then we don't get it. We get it and then we stray. Our human attachments are so strong and so deep in our experience of this human life that even when we get, whether it's at Gohonzon or from a teacher or a friend or reading something, we get this insight. I get it. And then we go and chant, and it's profound, and we get a silly little grin on our face, and everything looks new for a time. And then we're inundated by all of our dramas and emotions and blah, 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 whether it's an hour, a day, or a month, however long it is, we find ourselves once again chanting to this mandala, wondering, what am I doing here? What am I supposed to be asking for? What am I supposed to achieve? And it's always the same. When it just seems impossible for us humans to stay glued to the goal. But that's why this practice is so fundamental, profound, and amazing. Because when you do get that insight again, it's only a matter of time before you have to go through the process again. And this is the benefit of daily practice. Because once you latch onto it, if you can find, I don't know what is tickling my nose, but if you can stay latched onto it, your life elevates, your life condition grows. Even if you don't perceive it, there are moments in time when you'll go, oh, I'm different. I'm seeing the world differently. Answers flood in, not necessarily to questions you think you have to ask, because that's the nature of our karma. Although all those veils hide the true nature of our tendencies and conditions, our karma. It's only when we come out of that karmic influence that we recognize things are different. That's because you practice Buddhism, Myoho Renge Kyo Buddhism. Follow? So here's the next sentence in this letter to Shijo Kingo. In addition, the doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single moment arises from the concept of the three realms of existence. The three realms of existence are as follows. First, the realm of living beings, samsara. That's one realm of existence, right? As one huge conscious organism, human life. Not you, all of you. All of living beings, because that comes with a lot of baggage. And Buddhism talks about every single bit of it, and you're going to hear these next existences, these next realms, and it's going to start to click. The three realms of existence, at first, the realm of living beings. You, I, and everybody we know or don't know. Second, and that's throughout time or non-time, however you want to look at it. Ancestry, future and past, right? It's this entire samsaric reality. That's a realm in the mind of this experience. This whole living being's experience is a realm. The second, the realm of the five components. Okay, lost you. Five components, what is that? Shoes, shirt, hat, what? Okay, so just to save me from spending the next 2 hours talking to you about the five components, I'm going to use a Buddhist dictionary. Keep one of these handy. The five components. I'm going to read the whole thing because there's a lot of little gems in this. It's also called the five components of life, the five aggregates. Remember, we've talked about the aggregates, or the five skandhas, right? This is leading us all the way back to the Nidana here. Formations. Remember that word. The five components are form. What is it in samsara that doesn't have form? Or more accurately, what is it in our human experience that doesn't? Because this is samsara. We experience form. Namarupa, name and form. That is the nature of obstacles. That is the nature of attachments. How can you be attached to something that doesn't have form? The moment you attach to it, I don't care if it's a feeling or a Camaro, there is form. Because that is part of the process of attachment. We realize, we construct a form so that we can sink our talons into it. Right? Get your fingers in the grease, the song says. Second, perception. Without perception, we wouldn't realize or form formations to attach to. Perception. Conception. What if? This is the creative process, isn't it? We conceive of something, then we perceive that of that conception, and we give it form. Volition. That's your momentum. What I call your kinetic energy, your momentum, your constant moving from moment to moment, is the deepest form of attachment to try to make permanent. Volition is your... See, it's not... it's a different word than will, because will implies like you are a trailer hooked up to an engine that's pulling you along. Volition is more the force behind samsara. Volition is what's pushing you into this samsaric existence. And you can use it through chanting to push you to your clarity of mind, your Buddha wisdom. So this is the whole practice of Buddhism. Take this life with all of its realms and its things that create negative forces, attachments in your life, and use it in a way against itself. Use it to take you to your Buddha nature instead of sublimating it into your formations and attachments. Instead of being attached with all of these tools that are part and parcel of your existence, shift your use of these tools, this kinetic energy, toward your clarity. That's what we're doing. Fifth, consciousness. That's a really important one, because that's the only reason we can practice. Consciousness is your knowing that you're doing this. You ever have that feeling when you're doing something that it's like a little voice in you going, you shouldn't be doing this, right? It happens just before you cut yourself on a tool or a knife, or just before you have to slam on the brakes because you weren't paying attention, or right after you pass that exit that you didn't get off on. You knew you were passing that exit, and there was something about that exit, and it's not until just after the point of no return and you go, I needed to get off there. You knew, but what kept you from it, right? That's your consciousness observing your messed up behavior. Oh, it's like I'm going to work, I don't want to go to work. But that work is an attachment. It's a formation that forces you toward a certain behavior that you know is incorrect. That's your conscious mind observing. Right? Observing that you have become enslaved by your rote behaviors, your formations, your attachments, right? So, the 5 components, again, form, perception, conception, volition, and consciousness. They are the culprits of formations and attachments, and yet they're very powerful tools to subvert their current samsaric path, kinetics, momentum, and influence them to go, apply yourself to the form of, the volition to, the perception of, the conception of my Buddha mind, my clear mind. Clear? Why? Clear of these formations, these attachments. Go back to the Four Noble Truths, right? How do you escape the sufferings of life? Ceasing the formations. Not that they don't exist, but your formations are the attachments that you grab onto those things with. Those formations in the mind. Not the formations of a chair, the formations of the earth. Don't cease those. It's not about getting out of here. There are much more efficacious ways to do that, but they don't accomplish anything, right? They are themselves suffering. The way to escape suffering is to continue to exist without suffering, right? So there's no nihilism here. But it's important to understand all of this. Together they also constitute one of the 3 realms of existence, the other 2 being the realm of living beings, samsara, and the realm of the environment. Remember, I'm always telling you, your environments, where you are, in situ, as you will, is you. Those formations are your mental expression and experience of your karma. That mountain is a mountain. It's there. But each one of us perceives it our own way. Therefore, we are all separate understandings of that mountain. Remember the fountain analogy? Okay. Oh, and delve into it deeper here. 1, form means the physical aspect of life and includes the 5 sense organs, right? Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, right? Form. With which one perceives the external world. 2, perception is the function of receiving external information through the 6 organs, the 5 sense organs, plus the mind. This is samsara, which integrates the impressions of the five senses. 3, conception, is the function of creating mental images and concepts of what has been perceived. Fountain analogy. 4, volition is the will that acts on the conception and motivates action. So how we perceive affects how we understand, cognate, and all of that motivates our karmic response. And 5, consciousness is the cognitive function of discernment that integrates the components of perception, conception, and volition. Form represents the physical aspect of life, while perception, conception, volition, and consciousness represent the spiritual aspect. Do you see how we use spirit in Buddhism? It's not an outer force. When we use the word, and I try not to use it because I realize it confuses people, it's a mental activity. It's our mental awareness, thought processes, the very thing that we're trying to motivate toward clarity rather than obfuscation of the human perceptive mind. It's that consciousness that we're awakening, that we're wrestling with, that we're subduing, that we're redirecting. Because the physical and spiritual aspects of life are inseparable, there can be no form without consciousness, and no consciousness without form. Again, validation of the fact that Buddha is something we experience in this life, nowhere else. There's no afterlife or before life as far as consciousness is concerned, or as far as Buddha is concerned. Buddha is a life state, a mental state of perception, consciousness, volition. You see how this all ties together? All life carries on its activities through the interaction of these 5 components. Their working are colored by karma, one formed in birth. Now see, this dictionary is from a certain sect, and so they're going to push that previous lifetimes thing again at the same time as new karma. But I think that's not fully understanding what Buddha was saying in all of his teachings. There is no previous or after life. Okay, let's just put that to bed. It's all about how we form as a human with lots of energies that are already extant in order for us to go through formation, right? It just said so, this dictionary, even though that last sentence is questionable. It is karmic energies agglomerating, amalgamating in order to manifest as you and me, with all our varied perceptive filters. And we hitchhike, so to speak, onto parents' karmic glove, if you will. They're our glove as we manifest, and we have some of their tendencies and conditions attached to our tendencies and conditions, but we are a third entity. And this is the whole filial relationship, respect for one's ancestors, and our then effect in this experience of life into our future ancestry. Because unless you're single your whole life, which then that particular karmic stream ends with you. But if you get into relationships, even without children, you affect and are affected in your coupling, and you affect the world around you. I guess you could even say, even if you stay single your whole life, you can't avoid affecting, influencing others, nor can you stop the influence of the earth, let alone other people or a dog. All of it is karmic energy, so we're influenced by it and we influence it. I hope this makes sense. It's very important to keep these things in mind when we read Nichiren or any sutra, that the conversation centers around this realization of how we form and how we influence this form as well as everything in its environment. They're all a big soup of energies that are influenced. This is the whole amazement and realization of Buddhism, is that with consciousness, we are able to interact. We don't just look at insects, look at animals. There are insects born, I think it's a moth, born without a mouth. It's born to starve to death. It just goes through its cycle and bye. It's almost painful to try to understand that intellectually, but that's because we can do that. That's unique to us, right? All right. I had to pause on that because I think it's pretty profound and fundamental to our understanding of what we're doing when we're chanting to Gohonzon. Let us set aside the first two for now. The third, the realm of the environment, refers to the realm of plants and trees and others. And the realm of plants and trees includes those plants and trees from which are produced the 5 shades of pigment used in painting. From this pigment, painted images are created, and from trees, wooden statues are made. So he's centering this letter on this whole idea of this consecrated image, this object that Shijo Kingo has made. It is the power of the Lotus Sutra of Myoho Renge Kyo that can infuse such paintings and statues with a heart or spiritual property. But make no mistake, it's not that a chunk of wood can become mentally aware. It is the reflexive property of your mental awareness that you can, since we're such experts at attachment, we can attach to that image, that form. That's the clever use of our samsaric tools, right? But it's misleading. And so as Nichiren continues to talk here, he's going to continue to reinforce Myoho Renge Kyo, Myoho Renge. If you need a rocking horse with squeaky springs to focus your mind on your enlightenment, then use it. As long as you chant, as long as you use that image as your attachment to Buddhahood. See, there's the ultimate reversal, isn't it? This is what Nichiren talks about in earthly desires are an enlightenment. Not because earthly desires in themselves attain your enlightenment, but because your attachment to them, you can subvert your whole mechanism of attachment by using something where you declare your attachment to take you to this mandala and chant, to invoke and awaken your Buddha nature. Everything else follows from that, because that your environment is affected directly by your actions, your mental condition. You don't believe that? Ask a doctor what schizophrenia is. A paranoid schizophrenic sees danger and evil and attacks from everywhere. But they're no different. Those delusions are no different from the delusion that we have that our new car brings us joy and happiness. Our new relationship makes all the difference in our lives, and we don't need to do anything else, right? Early lovers just almost shut out the rest of the world. What if you could have that kind of attachment to Buddhahood? That's what we're after. Have that kind of welling emotion in your gut for Myoho Renge Kyo, for realization, for Buddha mind. That kind of determination, that kind of resolve. Nothing else but. That's a difficult thing to achieve, although it can certainly achieve in starts and spurts. But again, as I started out this video, difficult to maintain, to hang on to. Those insights, when they come, are powerful, just like falling in love is powerful. But falling in love is an expression of samsaric desire. Whereas the profound insights of chanting Myoho Renge Kyo with this perfect mirror to invoke and face us with our Buddha clarity, that's much more profound. But it's difficult for us to hang on to because we got this sluice of life experience just waiting to wash that away and put us plop right back onto samsara, right? So right after he says this, obviating a connection of form and volition and the potential of our environs to be imbued with our awe. You ever been to the Grand Canyon? You ever seen something in nature or in an art gallery or something somewhere online that just made you drop your jaw? It's not because that tree did that. It's because your mind did that. It is the power of the Lotus Sutra that can infuse such paintings and statues with a heart or spiritual property. And I would argue that what he just said is that when you have a clarity of Buddha mind, you can look at the blades of grass outside your house with the same kind of awe that you would your own Buddha nature, your own clarity of life experience. That Buddhist compassion is about that recognition, and it can floor you. It's amazing beyond description. This was the realization of the great teacher Tendai. In the case of living beings, this doctrine is known as attaining Buddhahood in one's present form. Exactly what I was just describing. In the case of painted and wooden images, it is known as the enlightenment of plants and trees. This is why the great teacher Chang'an wrote, quote, "There has never been anything to compare to the brightness and serenity of concentration and insight," end quote. Well, it's not the plant that's concentrating and getting insight. It is you. It is your amazement of the enlightenment of plants and trees is your enlightenment of the life process, the formations, the conception, the perception, right? All of that. And why the great teacher Miao Lo stated, quote, "They are nevertheless shocked and harbor doubts when they hear for the first time the doctrine that insentient beings possess the Buddha nature." But of course, they are part of all the formations, the same formations that amalgamate to create you and me, amalgamate to create plants and trees. It's just, you know, I mean, you need a secular example. Think of Joni Mitchell's song that Crosby, Stills, Nash made so popular. You should listen to Joni Mitchell's version. It's so much jazzier. It's more profound in its consideration about we are all stardust. We are stardust. We are, right? Woodstock. I mean, that's a very secular. People quote it all the time, though. We're all stardust. But they don't really think about what that means. What are stars? Tremendous balls of energy. Tremendous. Uphold life. This doctrine of the 3,000 realms, where are we time-wise here? Okay. This doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life was never heard of in the ages before the great teacher Tendai, nor was it known in the ages that followed, and even if it did appear, one may be certain that it had been stolen from him. However, some 200 years after the time of Tendai, Shan Wu Wei, Qing Chang Chi, and Pu Kung founded the so-called True Word School on the basis of the Mahavajrayana Sutra. And then, although there is no mention of any such doctrine in the Mahavajrayana Sutra, as the Buddha expounded it, they stole the doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single moment from the Lotus Sutra and Tendai's commentary and proceeded to make it the heart and core of the True Word School. So now we've... It's an interesting kind of shift in focus, right? At first, he's really addressing Shijo Kingo on what Shijo's letter was about, his pride in having created this statue, this image of Shakyamuni Buddha, and wanting Nichiren to consecrate it. And after pointing out several times that the only power in anything that you create in order to focus you on your Buddha mind is with the Lotus Sutra, with Myoho Renge Kyo. That's what's important. And now, since he's stated that, he's going to illustrate how currently there's a lot of confusing information out there, Shijo, that's mystifying things and confusing things for you, coming from the most popular practice of our shogunate, the True Word School. And it's messing up your mind about the Lotus Sutra. So please understand how to practice correctly. So he's going to start railing now about this True Word School. Moreover, they pretended that the doctrine had originated in India, and in this way deceived and misled the latter-day scholars of China and Japan. No one knows the truth of the matter, but all alike assent to and put a resolute mind and conviction in the assertions of the True Word School. This has been going on now for more than 500 years. This being the case, the wooden and painted images that were made and consecrated before the time of the True Word School, when the Tendai practices were followed, have manifested extraordinary powers of realization of those who use them as an inspiration to Myoho Renge Kyo. But those in temples and pardetyas built after True Word practices were adopted for the eye-opening ceremony produce very little benefit. Since there are many instances of this, I will not go into detail. It might be helpful, though, Nichiren. But as he said before, some of the rituals the True Word School was doing, actually walking on the face of Shakyamuni Buddha, designs made on the ground, right? It's no doubt that they justified all of their opinions through skewing all sorts of rituals and performances, right? But this is an interesting... I want you to think about something else, too. All of this really bolsters Nichiren's understanding that we critically need something in our physical samsaric world in order to inspire us to chant, to work on our own minds. So if we're going to need something physical to focus on, he's given us this mandala. Not because the mandala has power, but because of the power that it has to motivate you to instantiate what this is saying. This is the Lotus Sutra in calligraphic form. Basically giving you a picture of your enlightenment to, as he says, as a mirror to enlighten your mind. It has no power. You have the power. But if in samsara, as a human being, because we're trapped by this disease of attachment to things, well, let's attach to something as pure as possible so that we inspire ourselves to awaken ourselves. It doesn't awaken us. Remember, he says, don't look for Gohonzon anywhere outside yourself. This is a mandala to help you realize Gohonzon, your Buddha wisdom, your enlightenment. All right. This Buddha of yours, however, is a living Buddha. It differs in no respect from the wooden images of the Buddha made by King Udayana, or that fashioned by King Bimbisara. Surely Brahma, Shakra, the deities of the sun and moon, and the four heavenly kings will attend you as a shadow accompanies a body. A shadow is not a body, but it accompanies closely the body, right? And protect you always. This is the first point I wish to make. So now he's justifying Shijo Kingo's his volition, his will, his desire, his Shijo Kingo's desire to pay homage to and imbue, now asking for consecration, to imbue this object, basically asking for a Gohonzon or a mandala, some kind of tool for him to attain his Gohonzon. How wonderful that we can get these mandalas so easily today. And I will point it out again, the reason I use this Gohonzon, this mandala, is because it's from Nichiren's hand. Nobody else is claiming authority over this mandala. This mandala is not signed by any other monk or sect or whatever. It is from Nichiren's hand. That's the one I want. All right. Can we go a little further? Yeah, we've got some time. Your daily records also indicate that each year, during the 90-day period from the 8th day of the month through the 50th day of the 7th month, you perform acts of devotion to the deity of the sun. Again, he's a samurai. They have their own cultural rituals, right? Japan is the land of the sun goddess. A big part of cultural awareness in Japanese culture, certainly in samurai. The deity of the sun lives in a palace made of 7 kinds of treasure. This palace occupies an area of 816 ri, or 51 yohanas. In the midst of it dwells the deity of the sun, attended by 2 consorts, victorious and invincible. Can you see now why samurais would be ritualizing this? Also, Nichiren is flexing his own knowledge, right? Like, I understand where you're coming from, Shijo Kingo. To his right and left range the 7 luminaries and the 9 luminaries, and in front of him stands the heavenly goddess Marichi. The deity of the sun rides a chariot made of 7 treasures and drawn by 8 fine horses, and in the space of 1 day and 1 night he circles about the 4 continents, acting as an eye to all living beings who dwell in them. Now, if you're familiar with any other cultural histories, you'll realize that this is almost identical to the mythical figure Ra in ancient Egypt, carrying the sun through the sky every day on his papyrus boat, right? So what I'm pointing out is this is mythologies that are inculcated in the cultures. So I'm curious to see how Nichiren will use this inculcated attachment of storytelling to bolster Myoho Renge-kyo, correct Buddhist practice, right? In the case of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as well as the other deities, we hear that they bestow superb blessings, but with our dull eyes, we have yet to see it. Samsara, right? Dull eyes being eyes of desire and attachment, rather than being desirous and attached to our Buddha mind, if you will. In the case of the sun deity, however, there can be no doubt, for his blessings are before our very eyes. We experience it every day, right? Were it not for Shakyamuni, the Lord of Teachings, how could such blessings as these be bestowed? In other words, our extant Buddha mind, our inherent Buddha-ness, is the tool by which we perceive everything, whether it's samsaric or not. The problem isn't our perception. The problem is the interpretation, our consciousness of that perception, and how we utilize it, understand it, right? The formations we gather from those. And were it not for the power of the wonderful Sutra of the One Vehicle, Myoho Renge-kyo, how could such marvels appear before us? It is wondrous to contemplate. So Nichiren's doing his best here to show Shijo Kingo that everything we experience in life is because of this process of life. That with Myoho Renge-kyo, we can understand to its fundamental, intimate cores. We have that capacity. But we spend more time dedicating ourselves to earthly matters, right? Mundane attachments, sufferings. That's the nature of samsara. In inquiring how to repay this deity for his favor, we find that in the ages before the appearance of Buddhism, people of a discerning nature all bowed before him or presented offerings, and all of them received evidence of blessings in return. At the same time, those who turned against him were all punished. The sun god he's talking about. And what Nichiren would explain that is that when we give ourselves over, in other words, our mundane human selves over to something that has more grandeur, far more import, if you will, in our experience of life, we are sliding toward our more enlightened nature, even though we're not realizing it. And so we create more fortune in our lives. We're less conceited. It's less about us and more about what we experience. So see how tantalizing that is? Especially knowing Myoho Renge-kyo, how we can just dive bomb right into our Buddha nature. Why stop short? But here's proof in actual life that we have that inherent capacity. Now, if we consider what the Buddhist writings have to say, we may note that the Golden Light Sutra states, quote, "The deity of the sun and the deity of the moon, because they listen to this sutra, are able to obtain vitality in abundance," end quote. And the Sovereign King's Sutra states, quote, "Through the power of this Sutra King, these luminaries are able to circle the four continents," end quote. So all of this form of teaching is once again showing that these functions that you experience in this life, they have their source in all the same things as you and I. They are all manifest of this energy from potential to manifestation. We are no different. We are all stardust. Right? "You should understand, therefore," he continues, "that it is the power of the Buddhist law that enables the deities of the sun and moon to make their rounds of the four continents. The Golden Light and Sovereign Sutras, King's Sutras, are mere expedient teachings leading to the Lotus Sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo. When compared with the Myoho Renge Kyo, they are like milk compared with ghee, or metal compared with precious gems. And yet, inferior as these sutras are, they enable the heavenly deities to circle the four continents. How much more power can these deities gain, then, by tasting the sweet ghee of the Lotus Sutra? Once again, bringing everything back around to Myoho Renge Kyo. However you perceive your rituals as a samurai, as a government official, as a good citizen of Japan, paying respects to the earth, the sun, the moon, all of these different rituals that you engage in, if they're all based on Myoho Renge Kyo, that amazement will grow, will awaken your Buddha mind. The most efficacious tool is this mandala, but you could simply walk through life amazed and chanting Myoho Renge Kyo out loud with the rhythm of your footfalls, and you would be heading there as well. It's not that you have to have this mandala. It's that this mandala is extremely efficient in taking you there quickly. And so efficient, I would say, you might miss it. You have to really pay attention to your life condition as you chant for your Buddha awareness, your Buddha consciousness, your Buddha mind. Funny, I'm most aware of it when I stop chanting. If I do a nice long session, I really pour my guts into enlivening my Buddha awareness, my Buddha mind. Invariably, when I turn away from Gohonzon on completion, ring the bell, Daimoku Sancho, I turn around and it's like the whole world is vibrating. Everything looks so amazing to me. I catch myself with this little insane smile. It's just like I'll say it this way, it takes quite a while for me to land back on Earth. Even though I know I'm fully in it, everything seems lighter. It's because of Myoho Renge Kyo, of our Buddha nature. I'll read a little bit more and then we'll call it. Therefore, in the introduction chapter of the Lotus Sutra, we find the deities of the sun and moon ranged side by side with the deity of the stars, and in the Teacher of the Law chapters, it is predicted that the deity of the sun will attain supreme perfect enlightenment and be known as the thus come one fire sustaining. So, that right there is a very telling statement. He's basically saying there's all these deities and everything that culturally we have all this respect for, and that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're adjusting your perception through your practice of Myoho Renge Kyo. But he actually points out that in Myoho Renge Kyo, in the Lotus Sutra, it's pointed out that these deities that you're worshiping will become Buddhas in the future, will attain enlightenment in the future, suggests to you that they're provisional. They're only steps along the way. And if Shijo Kingo is aware of what that means, he should understand that though he may perform those rituals, it is the most expeditious thing for him to chant Myoho Renge Kyo for his own awakening, which will put him way ahead of the game with sun and moon, which are predicted to eventually attain that enlightenment. And I would even say to you that it is through getting past those earthly recognitions that leads the individual to Buddha-ness, enlightenment, awareness, right? Okay, lots of food for thought in that. I hope it piqued your interest. I hope it helps you in your practice. And if it created some moments, let me know in the comments. It's the only way that we can build on our knowledge and deepen our practice. Give me an opportunity to hear what you hear, to hear what you're questioning. That will help me expand my own understanding and do my own research. You may be seeing something that I've never experienced. We're different. So share that with me. That will help my practice grow, right? And we'll help one another that way attain our Buddha-ness. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Take care of yourselves. Download the audio from wherever you get your podcast, the Buddhahood Podcast, and so you can download it and listen to it anytime on any device. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.